weekends though.
Only on the weekends.
Yeah.
Why only
Yeah,
on the
like
weekends?
well, it was getting to a point where I felt like I was drinking too much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where I was just having a drink every day. It just became a
Yo,
habit. So I started just cutting it out. So I only drink on the weekends now.
at the end of last year, leading up, it was like I was drinking when I was thirsty.
Yeah.
Like that's how bad it was. Like I was really just drinking just to drink. Like I was drinking like I wonder like I was drinking like was like juice in the refrigerator. Like
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was
That's
also
what
it
I
was it
mean.
was like faster for me to make a alcoholic beverage than it was for me to actually get some water. Like that's how bad I was last year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just getting to the point where it was like I said, it was becoming a habit to where I get home at night and then like right before I go to bed, it was like, oh, let me get that nightcap. Let me get that nightcap. Let me. So I
You
just had
were
to
saying
just
that a
break the
lot.
cycle. Yeah, I just had to break that cycle where it was like, all right, you know what I mean? Let me just chill for a
Yep.
little bit.
Look,
And, you know what I
this is
mean?
comedy because I said the exact same thing to Kev, and I was like, when did we start this? He was like, I've been doing this, and I was like, okay. You remember that?
But I have been. No, when you so like
I
when,
was
that night
like,
you came. No,
yeah,
like
I
I
was
was
like,
like
this what we doing? And he
yeah,
was like, I've been
yeah,
doing this, and I was like, that's different.
yeah. Is it? I think because I guess you were used to the monk me. Remember there was a very monkish version of me, and I came out of that well before.
I
And I
don't
was
ever
just
remember that.
you
Yeah,
don't
and I
remember
was
the
like, this
monkish
is
version
different.
where I was like I didn't smoke, didn't drink, like I was just like
No, I'm talking about. I don't ever remember like, yeah,
drinking on a regular basis.
yeah, but I mean, I'm used to the ebbs and flows. Yeah, I'm used to the
I have
ebbs
a
and
lot of
flows, but
those.
this seemed like this was a very extreme, and I was like, this is different.
That
I was
wasn't
like, this is
extreme
different.
though. You're saying it's extreme, and I'm like that's not extreme at all. Like I basically have a drink at least once a day. Like you know what I'm saying. Like shoot, I was drinking like just when I'm thirsty. But I mean I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry, Leifer. But go ahead.
Nah, that's all I was saying. I was just saying, man. It was just becoming an everyday habitual type thing. Like you get up, you eat, you know, you get dressed, have a drink before you go to bed. Like it was like one of those things. So
Mhm.
yeah, I cut all that down because it was unnecessary for a while. I was just doing it just to do it. So you know, now it's like a weekend thing, a weekend warrior.
No, I could dig it. Man, another Tuesday night at 9. Prototype Dad in the building, man. It's good to see you guys. I haven't talked to you guys like I normally do throughout the week, but that's on purpose. Um, kind of wanted y'all to save up all the juice, you know what I'm saying, for what we had going on today. And some interesting things happened this week, man. It's been an interesting week. And the first thing I kind of want to touch on, you know how we're kind of like remodeling the show, right? To go over the weekly news. Why are you making that face, bro?
Because
Like, what is
I
that
would say,
about?
was that a pun intent? Was that pun intended with
No.
the juice? Was there a pun intended?
Yo,
Okay,
no.
I was say you ain't gonna touch
It's
on OJ.
coming. It's coming. No, that's
That's
where
what I
I'm
was gonna
that's
say.
where I'm
That's why I was like, was that
that's
pun
where I'm
intended?
hitting. But I didn't know that. I didn't no, I didn't mean it like that.
That's
But
what I
that's
said. That's why I
definitely
was like, was that pun intended? That's what.
that's definitely where I'm going. But no, like I think the OJ thing, right? Like, I mean, okay, we're remodeling the show to talk about the weekly news and what's going on in culture, and then we'll get into our topic. But let's dive into this OJ thing just a slight tad bit, right? And OJ definitely played a huge role in culture to me throughout the years, ever since this thing went down, right? And I remember, and I was only in seventh grade. I think Mo, you might have been in eighth. So me and Leifer, we were in seventh grade. It was that time where me and Leifer were becoming best friends because we had swimming class, right? So I remember during this time, the OJ trial happened or whatever, and when the verdict dropped, um, this one particular kid threw me way off guard. He was one of those like, um, he was a Chad, and culturally a Chad, but his name is actually Chad. And the fact that he was excited that OJ got off, I was looking at him like, "What you excited about?" I'm surprised. I'm not surprised because of how you portray yourself, but I'm surprised that you're actually excited about him getting off. And it was his reaction that actually like opened me up to what the OJ thing actually was. So I kind of want to talk about Leifer. How did you feel about when the OJ thing hit initially, and the very thing what made OJ not the juice, but OJ?
Um, so let me go back a little bit and remember like how the whole thing played out. Because if I remember correctly, I think we was at West, and they had like they were playing like they had yeah, they were playing the whole. They had like set up the whole little um jury thing, the whole trial up in the lunchroom, and so everybody
Right.
was like in the lunchroom and
Was you there,
going through
Mo?
that
Was you out west in
going
the
through that
eighth
whole
grade?
thing.
I was, but I don't remember. I don't remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
was
was
a
there in eighth grade,
thing.
but I don't remember that. Like I
No,
remember,
it
like
was
I
it,
remember
was
the
a
dynamics,
thing.
but I don't remember them
it was a
showing it.
thing. It was a
Yes.
legit thing. I think did we have swim class right before lunch or after? It was somewhere around that. But it was the lunchroom, like the news broke on the way to the lunchroom, and it was just like, oh, OJ got off. And certain people were excited, and then you look at the teacher's reaction, and they were upset. They were hot. I'm sorry. Look, I'm buzzing. Leave for go.
No, but I was just saying, just trying to play it back in my head, like the whole occurrences and where I was at that space in my life and what I was thinking. Because and I think like even looking back now, man, it's crazy to see that he even got off because people go to jail with less um, evidence, no matter how circumstantial it was. People go to jail based off of he say, she say, and I think there was some evidence that was there. Like I said, a lot of it was circumstantial, a lot of it was he say, she say. But how I feel about it, it was like, man, it's gruesome of an attack as it was. Like you had to be a straight up monster to be able to do that, and then move, you know what I mean? And to just move like ain't nothing really happened and try to play like you have to literally be like a psychopath. So that's one of the reasons why I ain't think he did it, because to be able to like if you snap out of a fit of rage or a fit of passion, you know what I mean? And you kill somebody, usually you know what I mean, if you're not a psychopath, you be broken up, like you ain't got enough in you to let me just run and let me do all this. Like he had too much wits about him at the time for me to think that he could have did this thing, man, and been able to cover it all up and do all that. Like that would have had to been a whole plan, you know what I mean? Like you would have to, like that had to be premeditated, like everything had to just work out perfectly for a lot of those scenarios to happen, even though he was, got caught and everything. But it was just like I didn't necessarily like from that standpoint, I couldn't see how he could have did it. You know what I mean? So that was where I was standing from. So where a lot of people were saying, well, the evidence. Well, a lot of times, people just want, like what they say, the streets need a body. So people just want people just want a body of blood. You know what I mean? They want something. They want somebody's head on a stake. And regardless, so they could have found out with sure bona fide evidence that it wasn't him, and there would be people who would still say, you know what I mean, I don't trust it. They know the evidence in it because they wanted him. Like he was the perfect person, for it. You know what I mean? He was the perfect person to tie down. So I just think, it's just, I don't know. I was never really sure about it, and I'm still not, even with all of the stuff that he did after, like, what if I did do it? What if I, you know what I mean? Like with the book and everything, it's entertainment. So I always just thought, dude was just trying to make a buck, because I think he still was paying the family, you know what I mean? So he's coming out of pocket this whole time. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I really feel about it. Like, I just don't know. I don't know that you could take somebody's freedom away. I mean, they do it all the time, but I don't know that you should be able to take somebody's freedom away without 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 having full evidence and with there being a shadow of a doubt.
What you got, Mo?
So I'm gonna hit this from a different angle. I was like 12 at the time, right? and I think I was very innocent of the world. Like I just understood kind of my small little town, my small little circle, right? In that trial, and as an end result, that verdict, it showed me there was a difference. Like society is more than what I thought, right? Because I remember, like, think about, like, because it was kind of diverse where we was at when going to school, right? Like I remember I had like white little girlfriends and stuff like that, right? And I was thinking, either you rock with me or you don't. I wasn't thinking you had to pick a side. And that trial, I started seeing people pick sides, and it started exposing stuff that I didn't realize was there.
No, because we lived in one of the racist towns in the city.
Here's the thing. To me, there were only, and this is going to sound wild, but like I don't remember anybody really being that like racist to us, with the except for example, hopefully it's not bad, but I remember the only people that we really didn't get along with is black people over there, was like them dudes called the headbangers, and they would scrap, and it would be like a whole little fight or whatever.
We was cool with them. Actually,
but other than that, I don't know. Like I wasn't necessarily with y'all, but the people that I was with, they was always beating up on them. So
they was beating up on them, but they had that hoop in the back, and we would go over there.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I don't know nothing about that.
I don't know, Leaf. Do you remember that or not? I used to go over there and hoop. They had a hoop on the back of their garage. We would be over there hooping all the time.
Yeah, see, I was in a different little circle. I was in my little knucklehead phase. So this is all news to me. But so what I discovered was people was picking sides, and people that I thought not that I even realized there was a side to pick. I was just like, I didn't even understand necessarily who OJ was, like, because his playing days was before my time.
Right.
I just knew for some reason he was a celebrity. Like it wasn't even until recently, like OJ was cold in football. Like I didn't really know he was that nice. But,
right.
And he's
2,000 yards, all that. Like you didn't know that.
Like I didn't realize how cold he was. So with that being said, I started to understand how society was actually really worked outside of just a poor black kid, if you will, in kind of a poor neighborhood. And I started seeing people like seeing stuff that wasn't there, like. He did it. Look at all the evidence. I'm like I was just looking at it objectively. Like I wasn't trying to have a confirmation bias. Like I didn't feel like I had a dog in the fight, to be honest. Yeah. And I was just, as a kid that I felt was, particularly a little bit smart. And I was like, maybe one day I want to be a lawyer or whatever. So let me kind of look at this objectively and see. And so there were a couple of things that I noticed. One, there was the kind of racial dynamic. And then another piece that kind of it exposed me to was the financial piece. And I was like, so if you got money, you can get justice in this country. Like, because, initially, like, it'll be like, oh, black folks never get a fair trial, this, that, and the third. And then I was like, okay, so if you got money, you can get you some justice, even being a black person. So that was one of the takeaways for me. And when I started seeing kind of the confirmation bias and people picking sides, and people started making their own narratives outside of what was actually being promoted to the public, that's when I started. It kind of grew me up a little bit. And I was like, wow, like this world is a whole lot different than what I thought it was. I don't want to say it jaded me, but it just, like we said, pessimistic, optimistic, realist. It showed me what was real versus I just had this optimistic view and everything was everything. If you're the right kind of person and you act the right way, everybody's gonna like you, or the right people will like you. And I started seeing that. I was like, oh, people's just like, you are who you are, and you're on that side, so we're against you. And I was like, oh, okay. And that's when I started kind of understanding some of those dynamics that are in play with, having to pick a side. And I was like, dang, this is deep. So
kind of like I was saying before, like I was much like you, like where I didn't have a dog in the fight, or I didn't understand why it was so important or whatever. And they were playing it in the lunchroom. You know what I'm saying? Like the verdict of the trial. And I'm like, so when the one kid, like I said, he was white, was like, yeah, they let him off. And I'm looking at him like, why are you so excited? Like it must be a thing. Like, but it was a white kid that he kind of acted black. You know what I mean? So I'm like, maybe he really is down. Like maybe he's not a front. You know what I'm saying? I see you wear the baggy clothes, you dress like us, you act like us, blah, 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 blah. You like the women, like, well, you like the girls, 7th grade, you know, what it is, right? So I'm like, oh, maybe that's not a front. But he's the one who kind of like exposed me to it even being a thing. And he looked at me like, you're not excited that OJ got off? And I'm like, like, you know what I'm saying? And it wasn't until I seen the teacher later on, it's like my interaction with him happened. And as I kept walking, the next interaction was with a teacher before I walked in the lunchroom, and she was disgusted. I can't believe he got off, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, oh, well, I'm definitely against the white teacher. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if there's anybody I'm raging against, it's definitely the teacher. In the 7th grade, you know what I mean? No teacher. We were still thinking about Nickelodeon taking over the school at that point. You know what I mean? So it was one of those things. But here's the interesting thing about the OJ situation, man. And it really changed the whole entire culture because without OJ, there's no Johnny Cochran. You understand what I'm saying? Like he was something, but it was the level of which his famous became. He was a high powered lawyer that turned famous. You understand what I'm
Because
saying?
he was a big deal. He was a big deal, but this was his crowning achievement. Yeah,
but this was his crowning achievement, and it made him culturally famous. He became a cultural norm in everything after that. You understand what I'm saying? Where he was just a high achieving lawyer. But you know that kind of stuff doesn't get spoke about in the culture. But you got OJ off, and that, you know what I'm saying? If the glove don't fit, you must have quit. It's got replicated throughout every comedy skit, throughout our whole society of, you know, culture of entertainment.
So I heard of him before because remember he was the one who got Snoop Dogg off, so that's why I knew of him.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I was way too young for that.
Yeah, so I was kind of in tune with that type of stuff.
That was 94.
So that's why I was like, oh, if you have money and you're a black person, you can get justice. And that's when I started having those type of thoughts, like, oh, okay, everything ain't fair. And so I knew of him. But to your point, like this put him in everybody's living room.
Just exactly. He became a household name. On top of that, the Kardashians, oh my goodness, the level of impact that the Kardashians have had on the culture and society is ginormous. And without this situation happening, that is never a thing. You understand what I'm saying? So it's just one of those things where, like, I don't celebrate if he did or if he didn't do it. But the amount of influence and impact this one man had on the whole entire, I don't want to say the world, because I don't know if the whole world thought about all these situations as they do, right? That's very limited thinking that, oh, America is everything, and you know what we think about is what they think about. But as far as us, like how many shows, how many like shows after shows, like there's been movies, there's been like the Kardashians has been a thing for 30 years at this point.
It was almost like the butterfly effect. Everything that happened, the rippled off of that is bananas.
Crazy. It's absolutely bananas. And like it even put the things that like I didn't even know OJ was in what was the funny movies?
Naked Guns. Yeah, I knew he was in Naked Gun.
I knew he was in it, but I didn't really know.
But I was like, I didn't realize that was a big deal.
Yeah, it wasn't a big deal until he made it a big deal. And then like the pun intended of everything of, oh, they took his Heisman, then he had to steal it back, and then he had an incident in Vegas. The fact that he got off and couldn't chill, and you know what I'm saying, they kept attacking him. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like all of that played such a major role in our culture and how things been developed over the years, even politically, everything, racially. It's had a huge major impact. And it's just, I've never seen nothing with that magnitude shake up the world. I mean, shake up what we know or what we see on the regular. Like, you can't think anything else. Sure. Yeah, shake up the country to like not even the Trump thing, not COVID. OJ had a bigger impact on our cultural society than anything we've ever seen. And that's when, like, when he dies, it's like, wow, there's an end to that. Like, there's no more OJ news ever. Well, I didn't want to even say that because who knows?
That ain't true. Because think about it. Like we're still talking about like there's gonna be more stuff. Somebody's gonna say, oh well, he had a confession letter. Like there's going like especially now because everybody has a voice.
Mm.
You're gonna hear about it for a while.
Right. And I hope he took it. If he did it, I hope he took it to his death, and nobody ever knows, and we can live like that. Now, if he wrote, "I did it," I mean that would be his last impact on. It would be his last impact on something, and maybe it would be like, I knew it. I knew he did it, but take it to your grave. But I think he would have eventually said something if he did it. Leifer, what you got? I think you got something boiling.
Nah, I was just, thinking, for the people who maybe weren't old enough. I mean, heck, we weren't really old enough, or the people who don't really have context, because you threw that Kardashians piece in their real laissez-faire, but you didn't really give no explanation on how they tie into that. You know what I mean? The Kardashians' father was one of the lawyers who was on the case with Johnny Cochran, and the Kardashians' mother was friends with O.J. Simpson. So, you know what I mean? You got to kind of tie all that in there. So, people kind of could get a full picture of how
he was Uncle OJ, right?
How that all ties into that.
That's crazy. This, like I said, we can't just brush over. Oh, this dude died, and that's it. Like we got to give. I hate to say it like this, but we got to give him his flowers. The impact he had on the world or society. We got to give him.
What you mean? You hate to?
I hate the what? I mean, because it's a negative. It's a negative light. It's a negative light.
Don't do that. Give him his flowers.
Give him his flowers on impacting the American culture the way he did.
Don't do that.
Because nobody's ever.
You could even give him credit for coining the phrase. You got the juice. You know what I mean? Because since that came, you know what I mean. Since they called him, the juice. All throughout 90s. Hip hop, like movie classics, that whole juice thing
that came from him.
It was a thing. Yeah, wow. that was a thing.
No, that's deep. That's deep. So let's go into the. I hate to end it because that's kind of exciting, but
yeah, because I was gonna say that could have been a show on its own.
It could have been. It can be a show on its own because there's so much to dive into when it comes to talking to the OJ and the butterfly effect of OJ.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
And even just the instance itself, like I said, man, we like as much as I thought I was tuned in at 12 years old, I had no clue. So just as he passed, I've done more research and like
really,
wow, it's deep stuff we would have to talk about offline, but it's
okay.
Deep.
Okay, bet. So into the next topic though, and I think this is going to be fairly short, but it don't have to be. I haven't heard it personally, or maybe I have, and just didn't think much of it. But the Rick Ross fireback thing that everybody. So my personal opinion, when a lot of people hype something, and I wish I didn't say that word, but when a lot of people endorse a thing, I automatically think it's lame, and that might just be a me thing, but I instantly become skeptical, right? So like all week I've been seeing, oh, Rick Ross ate this person, or what is it, Drake that he went after or something like that, like, oh, he went crazy, and then I'm like, okay, so let me listen to it, and kind of like I don't know if y'all heard the Kev on Stage thing. I was kind of like, where's the diss? I don't even see the diss. Where's the diss? Was it him calling it white? Am I listening to the right song? This sounds kind of old. Is this a new song? Like this is my thought process as I'm going through this. But it's just like, is there really a rap beef at this point? What is going on with this so-called rap beef? Because I'm lost in it. I don't know who's who, was what, who did who, at what point, who's saying what. I'm completely lost. But I don't know if you guys are up on anything or have caught it. What you feel, Leifer?
I mean, I've been like lightly engaged, not really fully engaged. Like I kind of, bowed out last week when J. Cole was like, I'm done, I apologize, whatever. You know what I mean? I kind of bowed out. I thought it was going to be, over and done with, kaput, And then my daughter she's the one who kind of told me, she's like, oh, did you hear? I think somebody else came out with a beef, and then I think it was Future, Metro Boomin, or they're, beefing with I think what Drake or something like that, and then I thought Kendrick came out with a new disc going back, and now that Rick Ross kind of got thrown in the mouth, I'm like, oh, there's just too much going on. Who's somebody trying to sell some records or like what's going on? Because it's just too much going on for no reason. It's like, all right, you know what I mean? But I always look like, part of me is like, the rap beef, the disses, and on wax is like part of the culture, and that's cool. You know what I mean? But then another part of me is like, man, they too old. Like they're not young dudes in the game. You know what I mean? They too old to not know the impact.
We would have went to high school with these
some
dudes.
of this stuff. Yeah. Like they too old to not know the impact.
I'm not you, Mo.
Stuff like your little entourage and stuff. Your little, you know what I mean? Might somebody say something, and now your entourage is beefing, and now somebody get killed or something happened in the background that you can't really got control over because you over here, you trying to keep it on wax. But if somebody disrespecting you, your man think they got your back. Oh, I'm gonna have your back. And then next thing something pop off, and you can't control any of that. So,
I don't think this will ever get to an MDK situation.
I
think we surpassed. Let me retract. With these particular artists that are in beef, there's not going to be MDK. I would have.
I think it very well could. Anything that could start over in the West Coast, you trickle over in the West Coast. Some homie over there.
That's a different animal.
Next thing you know, Drake come over there and his entourage is over there, and somebody press him in the streets. Or you know what I mean? Like any of that can happen. So that's why I'm like,
or God forbid, some Haitian, some Haitian in Miami want to get involved. Yep. But yeah,
why Haitian in Miami? Where did he come in?
So for example, because they I remember when they was pressing Rick Ross back in the day. So here's the thing. And so Leaf, I wanted to make sure you was done first. I didn't want to cut you off, but
you good.
So this was corny. I tuned out a long time ago, but Rick Ross is 48 years old.
Ooh.
Y'all didn't even know that. He's 48 years old. So one thing about me is, and this is, at my big age, I understand. It's about money. And I was like, all these are millionaires just trying to get their last little lick at the lollipop, man. So, and I was like, this ain't real. This is manufactured beef. And I don't even know how, but somehow DJ Academics always kind of comes up in front of me in my feed or whatever. And he was calling it a rap civil war. And I was like, it just made me feel dirty. And I was just like, man, the fact that these dudes are older, I was like, one, they're not going to let it get to this, but it felt like the vibe cover back in the day, East versus West. And I was like, man, they trying to set these dudes up to kill each other.
It don't feel like none.
No, I was saying it could. And I was like, they're manufacturing this. And I was like, nope. I was like, I'm not giving this any attention. I don't want no parts of it. And at the very least, all people involved understand, man, they're too rich to be out here down in the streets or even be associated with somebody in their entourage getting killed. Like this is the young man's territory. Like for them to be doing this type of stuff is corny, is lame. They're trying to drum up enough attention to make some money because, there's not a whole lot of money in music anymore. So they're just trying to drum up enough interest and enough following to be able to, get one last lick of the apple before, their career's over. So I'm like, so I didn't give it a whole lot of attention. And the fact that this is a thing and this is still a way to this is the marketing plan. It just it may be just at my big age. I was like, this is corny. Maybe I'll let the young folks, figure this out. But
you said that
this
10
is
times.
We're
gonna have to have a counter for your big age in this. At 40, we're gonna clip you out, years old, and we're gonna have a big age. How many times did Mo Better say big age? You gotta stop, bro.
Yeah, because this is
old.
We're too old to be entertaining this.
Our 40 is not our parents' 40. Let's adjust.
We're too old to be entertaining nonsense. The fall for the banana in the tailpipe at 40. At this big age, better.
Who looks in the tailpipe when they pulling off? Have you ever looked in your tailpipe before you got in the car?
No, I have not.
Exactly. So you will fall for it too.
Well, maybe not. See, you try to go literal, but actually, being that I park in my garage, I have to walk around, so I would see it.
You don't even bend down that low. Your back hurt.
But you would see
big age.
But you would
You
see it.
won't.
I mean,
You
you
won't.
just try to be contrarian at this point. But yeah, but if you entertaining this like at this age, like you need a hobby, you need a better hobby. So yeah, I haven't given it much thought.
So I mean, like I said, I don't think it is going to reach the level you guys mentioned. Like I think that's a little bit harsh to say. Like, oh, it could anybody, entourage, West Coast, East Coast. This is all play. Like I like you said, Leaf. I've basically tuned out, and I've tried to tune in, but even when I try to tune in, I can't catch the notes. Like I'm like, where's the beef? Where's the diss? I missed it. You know what I'm saying? So maybe I'm just too far gone. And to speak on your daughter, like this might be their thing, right? Like this might be their time to like, oh, there's a beef happening. You know, it'll never be what we experience, but maybe. You know what I'm saying? Like so.
Hopefully, hopefully it's not.
There's always some young knucklehead.
Well, not. I'm just saying,
Trey
even the
favorite.
magnitude of what they can remember, or like, I remember when this happened and what this meant and what that meant. Because I mean, because we could go back and listen to Hit 'Em Up and be like, oh, this is when this was going on, or California Love and be like, oh, this is when this has happened, and those still have very strong impacts. I don't think, and that's what I mean. I don't mean anybody down, but the music that came out of them situations were like very iconic, and I don't think these beefs are iconic. I don't think none of this is. I don't think nothing's iconic about it. It's just like I said. I'm having a hard time catching on to who's actually saying what and what it actually makes sense. But go ahead, Lee.
I think the problem. I think the issue is because with the stuff that they were saying in the beefs when we were growing up was like it was like more hardcore stuff, and it was geared towards like stuff that you could talk about, like, oh, I effed your B and blah, 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 blah. And you know what I mean? That type of stuff. Like how they talking, they're going back and forth trying to decipher who's number one. You know what I mean? Out of this quote unquote big three. So they're throwing like these metaphorical jabs at each other. And if you didn't listen to this person's diss, then you don't understand what this person's saying as they're coming back with the stuff. So it's just like you will be lost because they'll be saying some stuff and you're like, I don't even know what that correlates to. But if you go back and you listen to some other songs and you'll hear references to what certain people were saying in a song. So, and they're extremely lyrical people, you know what I mean? Especially like K Dot and you know what I mean? So that's another like, I mean, Drake, he's gonna have people write stuff for him. So I mean, he's gonna be lyrical too. So he's gonna have people write it.
Can't give him no credit.
You
can't give my man no credit.
Jake, no he'll write, he'll put a song together. But my thing is like he could come up with more content because he's not sitting there writing all this stuff himself. You know what I mean? Everybody always complains about Kendrick, oh, he takes all this time to put it, but because he writes it himself, like he puts all this stuff together, and by the time it gets done, sometimes it's not even culturally relevant anymore. So he got to go back to the drawing board, which is why Dr. Dre don't ever come out with the Detox, because by the time he gets something he likes, it ain't culturally relevant anymore. So,
well, let's go into the topic for today, right? And it's really, I think we'll have a lot of juice for this topic. But it's basically getting your family back, man. And I want to pull from our history, what we know, what we've heard, the stories we've heard. We know plenty of men who's lost their family. We know plenty of men who's earned it back or had to go through whatever they had to go through. And we know plenty of men that's like, it's nothing, let it go. And maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm speaking for myself, but that's been a direct thing in my family where, you know, even my grandfather was just like, keep it or go. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I just kind of want to dig into like, how do a man lose his family or lack the ability to create one? We'll go both those ways. What you got, Lee?
Man, I think there are many ways in which a man can lose his family. And I think one of the biggest things is probably because he might have never even had his family. You know what I mean? So he never really had a good grasp on what was going on. And he wasn't really, wasn't taking inventory
or stock of all the situations in his household. So when things blew up and when things went over, it was like it was a surprise to him. So he was like, well, you know what I mean? What the heck? We was good yesterday, and not really paying attention. So, if you don't necessarily recognize the issue or recognize what's going on, then it's kind of hard to fix it. And also, if you don't, I think we talked about it, plenty of times before, like lacking that the reference or lacking, I guess, an image that you could follow that shows you like what it looked like to have a healthy relationship or a healthy marriage or a healthy family, or to build that thing. And you know what I mean? If you don't have that and things start going south, you know what I mean? You could just look at it and say, man, this situation might be better off with me not there. So I think it's, I think there's a myriad of ways that somebody could lose their family, but ultimately what comes down to is whether they're willing to fight the game, get their family back, you know what I mean? Or fight to be in position to not lose their family. Because I think oftentimes, you know what I mean? It just becomes overwhelming with this, having to deal with the world's idea of what a man should be or what a father should be. And then you also have to deal with what that looks like internally to your family. And you know what I mean? It's not often the same. Like sometimes there's nuances to certain things. And, you gotta, I'm not saying you should ever break, but you gotta be able to kind of be malleable and bend to certain situations. Every kid's not going to be the same. You know what I mean? And every marriage isn't going to be the same. And every household can't be the same. That's my take on it.
What you got, Mo? How do a man loses his family or lack the ability to create one? Which I'm saying it like that because it's like that's losing your family, right?
Not creating one.
Not the ability, not creating one. Lacking the ability to create one and losing your family could be the same. Is the same thing to me.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, because you can have the ability to create one, and you could opt out. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the guys who can't create one,
who don't have option, who don't have the option to,
who don't have the gumption to, right? Not that I'm not saying their sperm don't work. I'm just saying they don't have the gumption to form and create, and the guys who have the ability to form and create and lose.
Okay, so let's kind of hit it, one point at a time. So, as far as losing it, I think Leifer actually touched on this. It's very nuanced, right? But I bucket it in a couple different ways. One, for you to lose it, I feel either one, you didn't deserve it in the first place. You probably shouldn't have had it to begin with. Or two, yeah, like don't you always say that? You always say that. You'd be like, yo, be the best option. So you probably shouldn't have had it, So that, yeah. So we can kind of expound on that. Yeah, and I don't mean to but that's the reality of it, for real. You ain't had no business having it to begin with.
Yo, keep going. I'm sorry I messed up your point. Yeah. Like your flow, that was hard.
Right.
no Diddy.
This guy. So and then the second point of it was, so not only do you maybe you didn't deserve it, but maybe you didn't really have the lockhold on it that you thought you did. And that's the point that I think a lot of people kind of get in. You were more of a convenience or a means to an end, or you were just an actor in a movie. You were a supporting cast member. And then next thing you know, they're like, I'm good. And you think you lost it, but really you were just along for the ride. And I think that happens more than, you're a nice guy or you're husband material, that type of stuff.
Ooh, now you hit him with that.
And sometimes you be thinking like, really? Oh, I am? And next thing you know, a couple of years down the line, they're like, I'm not happy. Let's do something else. And you're like, I lost my family. It really wasn't your family. You just were the supporting actor in the movie. And They decided to do something else because you were no longer useful.
Hey, I didn't think you was gonna go there, bro. Like, hey, those are two different things. And Leafer
Yeah,
kinda said,
I think those are the two sides of the coin.
you didn't even touch on the other side yet, like the lack of the ability to create one. But Leafer mentioned in the first one is like you not having a inventory on your family and not being able, like, not really paying attention and losing it that way. But I think it's like, if I always use the analogy like a man's a company, right? So like if you're the CEO, or and your job is to get new business deals, and you think that everybody under you put everybody in place to do what they're supposed to do. So you're bringing, like, you're focusing on get new business, get new business, get new business, and then you bring that in, and then you look down and like, wait a minute, y'all didn't put this through processing yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't got this person on board, and you don't got this, like, so you just, well, you lost that client. Like, we were supposed to be onboarding, and this is supposed to be in collections already. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like going through the pipe hole. So it's like, you can't really, I don't think you can really fault him for thinking that he put things in place. Ooh, am I talking about? So like, for thinking that he put things in place, and then like running through the gambit of like, okay, this is in place. I got this person here, got this person here, got this person here, and now I'm just trying to create new business so this can run through the funnel and everything's supposed to be working like gold. I don't think to turn around and be like, "Oh, you're not doing this right. You're not doing this right. You're not doing this right." I think that's more of a situation where, um, I can't fault that man for losing his family that way. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't necessarily be like, you did it wrong. I think you did everything you had to do it right. You thought you were doing it right. You just weren't paying attention to the small details, which you thought you had somebody for the details, but unfortunately, that didn't pan out the way you thought it was.
So, and I think to that point is that's kind of one of the things that's one of those nuances that I'm talking about. Like, you could have everything in place and you did a poor job of vetting. So you brought in the wrong person into your company and you gave them a position that was so valuable that you allowed them to get into a place where they're going to blow everything up.
Yeah.
So if you just would have not cut those corners and you would have vetted properly, and got somebody who was there because they wanted to be there, you probably would have been a stronger.
You say cut corners,
position.
but you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Well, maybe you should wait. Maybe you're not ready.
You don't know the way. You just think you're just doing what's best, and then like, oh, that's not right. So I wouldn't. I think so. What I'm saying is, I think that's harsh to say, like, oh, you cut a corner on the job when you thought you were doing it right. You just didn't know that you had to put this there, this there, this here, or you had to look out for this extra bit of piece because you just don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? And when you go through it, then you figure it out. But I think it's wrong to say you cut corners. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and I also think that, what I mean, it's there. You could have did everything you could have did all the proper vetting and everything, but
that you thought
was necessary. Put them in place, and everything was going as well as can be expected. And then there's a shift in the paradigm. Something happens, and those things are no longer effective. So now you have to shift you're shifting your whole operations, your whole mode of the way you do things. But now this just never catches up. So how do you adjust for those changes? You know what I mean? And when I'm speaking specifically about those changes, I'm speaking about the changes in people, because people tend to change. If you listen to all of the scientists, everything, people change every 5 years. So every 5 years, you got a new personality. Yeah, you might have. You heard somebody say we grew apart. Yeah, you got a new personality, or you got new traits, or within 5 years, you met how many different new people you're around, how many different new spaces you start, taking on characteristics of other people, and so things change.
Men.
So even in these different situations,
men doing that.
People,
men doing that.
Yep.
I'm saying men taking on characteristics of other people. Men.
I'm saying people but also you change.
I'm just saying people in general. You're just changing. You're just changing. Yeah. You're learning. So look, you're going to tell me 5 years ago, you think the way you did something 5 years ago, you would do it the exact same way now. Some of those things don't apply anymore. And you learned how to navigate those things because somebody showed you how to navigate them.
That's not changing. That's just I didn't have that information before.
But that's changing. That's
not changing.
That's the information changed, and it changed your mind about the process, and therefore
But that
your
doesn't
actions
change. That
changed.
doesn't change me, because if I had that information 5 years ago, this is the decision I would have made. That's not
But when you
changing.
know
And
better,
then-
you do better.
Yes,
When you know
and then
better, you
5
do
years
better.
down the road,
I
you'd have
agree
been
to that,
further
right?
ahead.
So if I know better, I do better, and that's always the case. Now, if I know better and don't do better, and then later on I know better and then did better, that's a change. But if I always had it in me to know better, do better, then that's not changing. I'm
If
presented
you
with
know
more
better
information.
and you didn't change at all. So just let's just say this, for instance, so we don't get bogged down. Let's say this for instance.
Yeah, we're
You
going
had
to the
the
wormhole.
information, and you decided to continue doing your same thing. That's not changing. Somebody gives you information and you decide to apply that information to whatever process you're using. That is an intentional change.
But if
It's
you always were
intentional.
like that, if you always did that same process, that's not changing.
I'm saying 5 years from now, there's always going to be something new you're going to learn. Within 5 years, there's going to be something new that's going to change the way you do things. It's going to change the way you look at
I don't
things.
want to talk.
It's going to change your
let's move.
process.
I don't want to not talk about it, but that's not what we talk about tonight.
It's
That's
not-
gonna
That's
have
what
a-
I'm saying. We're going down a rabbit hole here.
Yeah,
but
we're going to
yeah.
go down the wrong hole.
I think I can speak better than most on this. Was cute at 17 and cute at 28. You change. You'd be like, I can't believe I let that fly. You're like, this isn't no.
I mean, okay. I mean, if y'all
That's a
want
red flag.
if,
Like,
if,
I
okay, if
should
y'all
do
want to
something
consider
about
that change, fine. I don't.
I'm not going to call
change.
it anything. Yeah, I'm not going to call it a change because I don't want to bog the conversation. I'm not going to call it change. I'm just
Yeah.
going to say
Where do we start from? How did we
17 to
get there?
28.
Lee, for you, what you say before you went down the change thing? You don't remember.
Don't
So
even remember now. We didn't went down the rabbit hole. We got stuck.
Man, so we was talking about a man focused on his work and then getting
I
information.
mean, the whole
like,
point was losing your family, and you were saying he was just saying that circumstances change. That's
That's how we
there.
got there. We were just saying, yeah, circumstances changing. So even if you pick the right person and the circumstances within that pick kind of changes, then the whole thing shifts. That's how we ended down to the rabbit hole.
But we was on to something good before you did that, man. So let's talk a little bit about playing the role, though. And we didn't even get into. I think that we're going to be here for a little bit. We didn't even get into the other sense of not being able to create a family, but I guess this is kind of leewaying into it of playing a role. Mo, did you understand that concept, Leifer? That you're just put here to play a role? Because how do you play a role? Are you talking about like a stepdad situation or a new situation?
Not necessarily.
Where you're still playing a role?
Yeah, not necessarily. So for example, well, I won't get into, because there's a whole nother side that I kind of only gave one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, I would imagine we're going to talk about at another point. But when I talk about playing a role, is you're just kind of being agile, being a developer. You understand that you're just, whatever it is that's coming, you're playing defense all the time. Like, you're never really doing in having effect on the relationship to where this is what we're doing, this is what's going to happen. You're just catching punches all the time. Oh, I got to make happy wife, happy life type stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're just playing a role. So that's what I mean by that. Not necessarily, I know we talked about it in the previous episode. I'm not saying sanitation work or whatever. Like, that could clearly be a role, but when you're just catching punches and you're always playing defense versus actually being engaged, and y'all are having a back and forth, and y'all are two partners, and y'all
So
are
you're like
moving
the employees are telling you how to run a business.
Yeah, or the inmates are running the asylum, as they say. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's definitely the wrong place to be. But I think a lot of it is woo. Okay, so here's where this plays a part. And I told you I read the book of Titus. It's a Bible. Book.
Okay.
Nobody reads Titus. I swear to you. I don't know if you ever heard Titus being preached, but I was on Humble Dad last night, and a young lady brought up the book of Titus, and I'm like, who reads Titus? And it's a very short book, and I went to read it, and I was like, yo, if this was preached more, men would have a way better grasp on how we need to run relationships, how we need to be in leadership, how we need to understand, we need to teach. Like the whole thing is trickled down. Like there is, like, according to the book of Titus, there is no such thing as common sense. And this is me summarizing, right? But there's no such thing as common sense. Everything is taught. So we're expecting women to like not be hoes or not do this or not do that, right? If they're not taught not to be that way or they're taught to be a certain way, that's what they're going to do. The same with men. Everything to the detail needs to be taught. And I know most situations where men don't want to necessarily teach all the time. We're looking for a partner and we've been sold this dream. I'll say we've been sold this dream to think that we can find a woman who could be our quote unquote partner in running life, you know what I'm saying? But one thing I've always noticed women saying is I want a man that's going to lead. I want a man that's going to say what we're doing. Order for me, pick me up, tell me what we're doing. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. You know what I'm saying? And we're too busy saying, well, do you agree to this? Well, let's both agree. And they're looking at you like, both agree, man, you weak. And you're like, wait, I'm respecting women. How am I weak? And I'm respecting your opinion. I want your opinion. I need to hear your opinion. Because that's how we were raised and that's how we were taught. But realistically, everybody needs to be taught the right way. And men need to taught how to be leaders. There's no such, like I said, according to the book of Titus in the Bible, there's no such thing as common sense. And that's what I get from reading it. I don't know if you guys get the same thing, but or when y'all go back and it'll take you all of 20 minutes to read the entire book. When it comes to playing a role, you don't know what role you need to pick, and that's how you always end up catching punches. Like playing in defense. Like, okay, let me do this and do that. Right. So let's talk about a little bit about how else do men lose their families. So because what I really wanted to kind of not really wanted, I wanted y'all perspective too. But one thing I was really thinking about is how we gamble our family away, how we drink our family away, how we abuse our family away. Those kind of things. And then kind of like on the back end talk about how we can gain trust back once we get things together. You understand what I'm saying? Because I've heard that. That's the side of life I've heard. Like, oh, your granddad, he drunk all the bill money. And they used to confuse me. Like, what do you mean drunk all the bill money? Like, how do you drink the bill money? Like, you know what I'm saying? Oh, you spent it all on liquor. Or you spent it all on
that's
women.
cap, right?
I don't necessarily know. Because I wasn't there, and I hear the stories of my grandmother, and you scared the mess out of me. I hear the stories of my grandfather. I hear all these different stories about what happened to my family and why we're in such disarray. You know what I'm saying? I know my grandfather lived in a bar, in the back of a bar for like 10 years. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like when this person's like that and you see my grandma actually living in a house or whatever, whose story are you going to believe? You're going to believe the person with the most stable situation. Right? But that's what you say though. Like, oh, they don't got no bread. Ain't that a common thing?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that everything that they say is believable. It's just from their perspective.
It is just, but when you look at the grand scope of who has what, like the evidence must be in the pudding, right? Like, oh, so since this person is stable, that's the person that's right, opposed to this person is living in a bar. They've been living in the back of a bar for the last 10 years. That person must be wrong. They must be absolutely on the wrong end of things. Believe it, if you can kind of put together, understand what I'm saying, can you speak to it?
Man, it's funny because I know a lot of men who kind of, pissed away their family or, drug addictions, alcohol addictions. I don't know. I don't think I know too much gambling, but maybe that's, maybe that was a part of it as well. I know that's a big Pittsburgh thing. I don't know what that's about. They gamble like a mug, even before the casino, man. They go across the street to Mr. Charlie's house and run them numbers and you know what I mean? All of that stuff. So, I've seen it a lot in my lifetime with, with men kind of you know, I don't want to say not making the right decisions, but you know what I mean, indulging too much in certain things that was negative to the lifestyle for their family. And you know, maybe with the drug addictions, with the alcohol, maybe they did piss away the bill money, or maybe they became violent, or maybe they became you know, I think a lot of those situations, man, what really happens is that the man becomes almost a shell of the person that the woman knew, you know what I mean, growing up, or knew when they first got together. And some of these things, you know, are kind of shift, where she's starting to change in one way and he's changing another way. So I think a lot of that can play a big part in, you know, making the family, breaking up the family, or pushing him away from his family. Some of those decision making, and also I think when he's away, you know, when some of these things are taking him away from the house and taking him away from home, you know what I mean? You're not in the home, you're not being a positive influence, and you're automatically, you know, Xing yourself out of the deal day by day by day. The less your children see you, or the less your children see you in the positive light, man, it's kind of hard for you to have any respect in that household.
Mo.
So, I'm going to change the characters to protect the innocent, right? But here's what I know. Everything that you heard, if it was one-sided, that wasn't the whole story, right? If one person gave you your family's history, it's only one-sided. And as somebody who grew up with an older generation, I actually end up getting the real stories a lot of times. And, you know, if you didn't get to speak to sometimes your grandfather, it's a very one-sided perspective history. So it goes back to the point that I have, and you know, it's why I have some of the beliefs and stances that I have. So for example, when they say, oh, well, you know, back in the day, your grandfather, he pissed away the money, he pissed away all the bill money or whatever, right? A lot of times it was maybe he didn't want that family to begin with, and he felt like he got stuck. So he was just drinking, self-medicating because he was depressed. He was like, this wasn't the life that I chose. This wasn't what I wanted. I was just trying to have fun. Now look at me. I had a shotgun wedding. You know what I mean? Like this. So he's self-medicating. And then another thing that I think is really unfortunate that happens in our community is, man, that strong silent type, man, he goes unheralded. Like, you know, your grandma might be in a big old house that, you know, she got off of, you know, your granddaddy's back. He worked at a mill for 30 years, might have had something chopped off, you know, got lung cancer or something like that, and got some, you know, inheritance money or some insurance money and pension money. And we talking about Big Mama's house. Not, you know, she ain't worked a day in her life. But we talking about, look what grandmama left us, not realizing that, you know,
Granddaddy set it all up.
I was about to say, yeah, I was going to say, you know, and why you don't realize that, you know, why all your uncles don't look the same.
Ugh.
So that ain't exactly, that wasn't exactly a saint. That might have made your granddaddy drink.
Why are you so harsh? Like, you normally give a lot of empathy to the older generations, but today you're not.
No, I am, because so what I'm doing is I'm giving grace to that generation that didn't have a voice. Yeah. So because, you know, in a lot of families, you only heard the woman's side of it. Because for the most part, man, granddad died early. You know what I mean? You'd be lucky if granddad even made it to retirement. You know what I mean? Like I've even seen what people say, I miss it when men died early. I miss when men died early and we were able to spend their pension. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Ooh, you heard? Ooh.
I saw that on social media. Now I know that was a thing, but the fact that somebody had the courage to type it was crazy to me. But yeah, like, so as somebody who, man, I got to actually hear those stories. You know, my grandfather was born in 1930, I believe, maybe 1929 or something like that.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So I got to hear like how things were, and you know what I mean, man, the kind of stuff they had to do to survive. And man, you want to talk about having 3 full-time jobs just to survive?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, that's wild. Like, I couldn't imagine a man, like, you want to talk about leaving your family. Man, dudes will leave their family just to, you know, for child support, man. These dudes was working 3 full-time jobs just to kind of make ends meet. And we know what happened, you ain't never around. So, Mr. Street, Mr. Pool Shark with the green eyes, he all with the big rag used to always pull up around. And
what about the Regal? The Cadillac?
Yeah, that too. And bump
yeah.
up, when he Uncle, look, Uncle Charles.
He wasn't doing
bump
it
up.
before you left, huh? Before you went to the army.
Right. Right. Family man. Usually, I used to love to bring home the groceries.
That's one thing I say all the time, right? Like, and that's men who wait for women or want a woman that comes packaged with some stuff, you're only enjoying what another man has taught her. Like, you're not necessarily enjoying that woman, because women only produce what somebody has taught them. You know what I'm saying? So,
why can't you teach him? Why can't you teach him though?
No, I'm good with that. I'm good with a blank sheet.
Okay, because that's what I was about to say.
No. I'm absolutely fine. I really go for the blank sheet. I prefer the blank sheet. You know what I'm saying? When she come with too much, I don't mind having to add this, do this, blah,
who
blah,
taught
blah.
you that?
Right. Now if I gotta be like, she does this really well, that really well, all these different things really well, I'm already thinking she not mine. I'm enjoying the fruits.
So that's not always true.
Of
so don't do that.
Labor.
Sometimes maybe their daddy just raised them right.
You assess the situation.
Yeah, sometimes it's that.
No, you assess the situation, but what if there is no daddy, or what if there's a stepdaddy, and you know what I'm saying? Like, then it's like, then that's when the question is like, what's that body count? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that they hate so much. Like, you start wondering, like, where you learn that technique from? I love it. Keep doing it, but you're never gonna make it to the show. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of one of those things. So, not to go too far deep into, so we know how men can lose their family. They can drink it away, gamble it away, or they cannot care enough to even keep it, right? But they're
not valued enough to, because remember you were saying, and that's the part that we haven't touched on yet, how you were saying they didn't have the ability to make one. I was like, what if they didn't have the want to? Like, they kind of, maybe they had an understanding.
Well, we're not talking about
that.
I'm saying, should we even have to speak on these men? The ability to not even create the family. We're not them, so we don't know that perspective for real. Or do we know anybody like that?
So let me know what you mean, because when I say, creating a family is you're actually creating a family that you're going to help be there. And like, I'm not. So what are you categorizing as somebody who doesn't have the ability to create a family?
Someone who can't find a woman to have kids with, to create their own family.
So he's just like non-select. Is that your take on it?
Basically, yeah. Okay. It's the non-select. You know what I mean? Because I have aunties like that. We have aunties who I have some aunties who never had any kids, never had a man, never, you know what I'm saying? But on the flip side, they never were appealing. They never had any of that gumption. So they love kids very much, but the fact that they never had no gumption, no nothing, this or that. I mean, I'm not surprised that they didn't make it that far. So there's those guys that, weren't selected or can't really get what they will settle for. Well, none of us are them. So do we even have to speak on them, I guess?
So, and that's what I was going to say. I think the mindset is different. I don't see them as now, granted, the fact that when you put that whole non-select part on it, that's a different guy. That's a different archetype. But what I was thinking about was somebody who was like, the squeeze ain't worth the juice. Like, I know people, like, they talk about,
we know that
passport.
Yeah.
Right.
We know.
So we talk about like
them,
passport bros, and I know people that was doing it like generations before us. And that's who I was thinking about. I wasn't talking about like the non-select guy that just can't,
I don't know
what talking about.
I don't know any guys who could have selected, like, any man that doesn't have kids from an older generation was trash. Like, there was nobody from my anecdotal experience, right? That's my experience. That any man that didn't have a family or some kids here, the kids there, they weren't the non-select guys. Like, everybody came susceptible to some yin yang. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't know a man that hasn't fallen to the sword.
So I do it. I do. And they actually have they have the pedigree. They have everything that They just, if anything,
Leafer's face though.
Look, they just decided. They was like, man, you're not about to trap me up. And like, they were the consummate bachelor. Now, the one thing that I can think about them is, like, once they got old, I was like, dang, man, you waited too long. Like you turned the lights off at the club, and that's the only part that I was like, man, that part of it was sad. But other than that, I was like, man, you wrote it out all the way into their 50s, and I was like, okay, that's not a bad life. But it was like, start getting sick and ain't nobody to take you to your doctor's appointments, and I was like, oh man, you hoping your big sister can do it, and I was like, wow, that's tough. But other than that, like up until that point, like I was like, I don't hate it. But the fact that you were just that non-selective, I mean, you didn't have to get your way at all. Yeah, why are we even talking about them? Like, good luck.
I to be honest though, I think we know more of them than we put on though. I think I have some cousins in that wheelhouse who, even to this day, they're 40, no family, no nothing. You know what I'm saying? And they're like, and I look at them like, not that they're bad guys or they're not select, but their selection is very bad. Like they select very bad. And I'm like, I can understand why they wouldn't fumble on that. Because who would want to fumble in that? But why aren't you going after what you would fumble in, I guess you would say.
Like, this is a very interesting conversation, because I mean, at what point, like, you're almost like you weren't a fool enough to take a bad deal, and they're probably like, I was smart enough to not get caught up. So you're telling me like, you didn't get played.
It's only smart. Okay. It's only smart if you could avoid the, you know what I'm saying, the high end things. Like if you just scrape the bottom and be like, well, I'm just going to eat sardines for the rest of my life. Like, is that living? That's not living. Like,
if you're okay with it, yes.
No, that's not living. I'm gonna eat sardines, so I never really get hurt by the one. I can't afford the filet. Like the you understand what I'm saying, right?
That's really interesting that's your take, because one of the things I say this a lot. In a few, maybe in the next couple of generations, we might see more of that.
We will. No, we absolutely will. We
talk about the American dream.
I can survive off sardines.
Yeah, we talk about the American dream and all that. I want to grow up to have a good career so I can buy, have a pretty woman and have a great house and take care of her for the rest of her life.
Yeah, that's going in the drain. Yeah,
like that's not even going to be an option for like 80% of the males that are coming up. So they're just going to give up. They're going to lose hope. And I think what's going to end up happening is going to be like, was that something to aspire to anyway?
You like to. I came up with a concept of love yesterday, and it's we. Like, love for me is we. It's when you say you don't have a problem, we have a problem. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I'm dealing with this. You're not dealing with this. We dealing with this. So I'm applying it to. I like to see anybody that I find close, like myself. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like,
I don't elaborate.
So like, if you don't smoke, we don't smoke. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you're not taking this. You're not taking a bad deal. We're not. I'm not letting you take a bad deal. And that kind of it turns in, like, love for me turns into we. So like when I have people in my circle that I love, it's not a, oh, you like this. It's a, no, we're not doing this because, oh, like, this girl's taking advantage of you. So now I feel like she's taking advantage of us, type deal. You understand what I'm saying?
Got you. Okay.
It turns into
got you
a
now.
we thing, yep. Right? And I think that's different. Like, I love someone and we just cool, or I like you. You know what I'm saying? So the love part. So when I love someone and I see them making, like, eating sardines. Like, bro, we not eating sardines. Come on, man. We eating this. Like, we not eating sardines, man. You know what I'm saying? No, we're not eating that. And then they're like, no, I want to eat the sardines. I'm like, no.
So that's not
We're-
love. Because I used to have that same mindset. And what I've learned is you can't want something for somebody more than they want it for themselves. So I'm willing to meet a person where they are. And if I love them enough, I'll accept them through their faults, and I'll be willing to, I don't say pick them up, but I'm willing to help them once they decide that they want to do better.
I'm not that mentally strong anymore. I had to detach. If you can't,
There's not many people that I would do that for.
yeah,
but
I have to detach. If you can't come up here with a like, I can't come down to eat sardines with you, bro. I'm sorry, can't do it. And I'm speaking on every level, right? What you deem susceptible, like where you go, the decisions you make, like, you know what I'm saying. I can't eat sardines with you. I'm sorry, that's not. No, we're not doing that. You got to be better than sardines. So that's that, and that's what I need to love somebody, is the ability to get out of sardines. Man, we spent a lot of time on this. I don't know if you want to speak more to it, Leifer, but I kind of want to go into how to get
give me
your
a couple
family.
minutes. Give me a couple minutes.
Okay, I want to go into.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, and then I'm gonna speak.
How to rebuild the trust, reestablish your family once the mistakes were made, right? So, man, we've been all over the place, but it's been a fun conversation. I ain't gonna lie. But it's kind of like once you made the mistakes, you cheated on your woman, you fumbled, or whatever, you fumbled your family. Maybe you drank too much. Maybe you gambled your family away. You came to your senses, and now you want your family back. This is what I want the conversation to really be about, and we're an hour in, but I don't care. How do we reestablish and regain the trust? How do we get past the hurt? How do we reaffirm the people we're trying to get back into our lives and let them know that we are a part of a good brand, a good team? We want the best. You understand what I'm saying? Y'all know, you understand where I'm going with this, right? After you lose your family, after you went through your depression, and you did this and you did that, and you basically lost them. How do you bring them back? What you got, Lee?
It's tough because you got to be able to. You really got to be able to admit where your fault is at, admit where you were wrong at, and you got to probably be able to eat crow for a while because you probably left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Mostly those in your household that you're trying to regain the trust of, or reestablish a connection, a relationship to. So you're probably gonna have to really come in. I hate to say it, but like humble and really be, show them like, hey, look, man, I was out of here for a while. You know what I mean? I'm back. Listen, you know what I mean, and try to really get them to buy into what you selling, because it's going to be an uphill battle, man. Once you kind of lose the trust, and once you kind of work your way outside of that circle, man, it's hard to get back in, and oftentimes that's why I think a lot of men opt out, because it's like, man, it's too hard to try to win it back. It's too hard to try to get in here, and a lot of times, like I said, it's too hard to admit where you were wrong. You know what I mean? And be able to like say, you know what, I was wrong. I need to get some help. I need to take care of this, whether that's with drinking, whether that's with a drug addiction, whether that's with, anger issues, whatever it may be, and whatever it may be. You know what I mean? You have to be able to admit that to yourself, and you got to, be willing to put the work in, because it's not going to be an overnight thing. And if you, if you got a woman who you know what I mean, who wants to support you, but also doesn't know if she could trust you, man, she's going to hold your feet to the fire. You know what I mean? And really try to make you stand on what you say. So you're going to have to show and prove. And that's difficult, man, especially if you still got your own demons that you're dealing with and you're trying to dig your way out of there. So I think you just have to be intentional about what you want. And, and if what you want is to regain the trust of your family and regain your household back, you got to be willing to put the work in, and, put your emotions aside and just dig in. regardless of what's thrown at you, because there's going to be everything, including the kitchen sink, thrown at you.
No, that's absolutely real. And go ahead, Ma. Before I say anything, go ahead.
Man, again, like it goes back to the vetting, and maybe there's just some luck to it, because if you truly lost your family, and that to where your kids don't love you anymore, and that woman does, and I know we're only saying the man losing their family because that's the context, because it could happen in reverse too, but if you truly lose your family, like they don't love you anymore and they don't want you around anymore, I don't think you can get it back. It's highly conditional at that point, because for you to come back, it's like if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you're out of here. And that's why I was saying love isn't, oh, I won't eat sardines with you. Love is what you can go through, not what you'll put up with. Like, I'm going to go through this with you, like us. Like you said, it's us. If I love you, I'm going to come down there and I'm going to eat sardines with you while I'm trying to coach you. Hey, we need to, man, there's steaks over here. There's Morton's. We just got to, do what we need to do. And we know, we got to stay grounded. But when you lose that, to where they're like you said, you like, oh, I ain't eating sardines, and you just, you get rid of them. I don't know if you can ever get back. Because one, if you do come back, and this is just in my mind, because I'm loyal. I'm over loyal. I'm loyal to a fault. So if I saw you gave up on me when I was down, I'm going to be like, I'm never going to be like, man, I know this is conditional. Yeah, I clean myself up or whatever. But this is, as long as I do what you want me to do, I'm in your good graces. But as soon as I step outside of the line, especially if I'm dealing with quote unquote demons or whatever, and I have whatever, as soon as I step outside of the lines, I know I'm going to lose you again. So it takes away the motivation to want to be better for that person. So the hope is that you're going to be with somebody who's willing to eat sardines with you. It's for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, for sickness and health. Not somebody who's going, give up on you when it gets hard. And I'm not saying that they're wrong for doing so, but when they do, is it worth getting back? And two, it's highly unlikely that you can truly get back to what it was. Because once innocence is lost and once that trust is gone, it's very hard to get it back. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's near impossible.
No, that's real. I can't eat sardines with you. I can't. You're absolutely right. There's very few people that you can do that for, and maybe you do it once, and maybe you do it twice. But it's here's the problem with that: is like you never know how serious that person is about really getting out of sardines. Like if they're really comfortable, like because you'll be like, oh no, we're not eating sardines. Like, and they'll be like, they'll tell you they're not comfortable with eating sardines, and as you're trying to get them out of eating sardines, they really don't want to leave sardines. And that's like the biggest burn on that. Like, dang, I love you, but you just don't want to get off the sardines. And I think where I'm at in my life, I've ate sardines. I've tried to meet people at sardines too many times. Not fair though. I don't think that's fair for people moving forward.
Maybe you don't love them, maybe, or maybe you don't love them enough. Maybe we can say that. Like if you're like, you know what, I just don't love you enough to eat sardines with you. That's okay, but I still got love for you. Like if I ever loved you, I got love for you. But that doesn't mean I'm eating sardines with you. There's only a few people that I actually would, and that's okay. But once you get out of that, like once you gave up on that person, I don't know how you get it back.
I don't.
Or should you?
And there's the question, and that's the final question. Should you even try to climb out the hole if you're in it? Is it worth it? Leifer, what you got?
Like I said, that depends on what you want, man. You know what I mean? If especially if there's kids involved and things like that, if your intention is to be a stand-up guy who's going, work to improve himself, who says he's a man of his word, who says he wants to be around, you know what I mean, to help raise his kids, who wants to live by the vows. If you're a married person, he wants to live by the vows that you said before the throne of God. Then I would think that you would want to, do everything possible to try to work it out and try to make sure you get your household in order before somebody else comes and gets it in order. But that just depends on the type of man you are. You know what I mean? That depends on the type of man you are. What do you want? You know what I mean? And you can't want, like you said, you can't want something more than somebody else wants it. And you know what I mean? If you want what's best for your household, what's better for your household than you? You know what I mean? Somebody else in that spot ain't going to be better for your household. You know what I mean? That changes the whole transition of everything else that you got going on. You know what I mean? And the trajectory that you had sought out and built for your family, that you envisioned for your family. Now there's a whole new vision that's coming in. So a vision that doesn't include you and it's separate. And I always say that, you know what I mean? The vision that you had and everything that you built for your family should always come primary. And that should be the first thing. But if you messing up and you ain't even taking that vision seriously, then, you know what I mean? What else can you do? So I think it's worth fighting for if that's something that you want. But, we've seen a lot of people opt out. You know what I mean? And it's not easy and it's not for the faint of heart for sure. Especially if you're the one who made the mistakes.
So, Leifer, I got a question for you because, and this is for both of y'all. So,
yeah,
let's go back to it. Gives it historical context. So in 1975, when they had the whole Welfare Act and they had the whole civil rights, right? And essentially what happened was women had to make the choice on my husband, because we were married at a high clip. My husband isn't able to get work and provide for us. So should I kick him out in order to make sure these kids can eat? Is that okay? Or is, you're like, hey man, it was just a dollars and cents discussion and, because you said, is it better for me to what's better for me than me, for my family? And yeah. I agree, but I think it was a survival decision. And should we fault them for making that decision?
75, maybe not, but I don't know the full context of what that rule said. I've heard.
So you couldn't have a man. You couldn't have a man in the house.
Heard some varying, but I've heard some varying things that conflicted with that said that wasn't true. So I didn't go back and do the research because that was one of the things that Candace Owens was saying, that somebody debunked it and came back and said that wasn't the full scope of what the bill said or whatever. I don't really know. I didn't do the research, but I ain't talking about 1975. I'm talking about 2024. If this is happening in my household, if this is happening in a household near you, the decisions that you make. You know what I mean? Are you more important than what's going on out here? Are you more important to your household than you not being in the household? Some of those same decisions. And I would say,
some of those same decisions are having to be made now. Now, granted, it's to a lesser extent. It's maybe not survival. Yeah. It's a standard of living, right? So maybe you guys, you guys are eating. You guys have a roof over your head. You're not worried about stuff getting cut off. But maybe they're not able to drive a luxury car. Maybe they're not able to take 2 vacations a year. Maybe they're not able to help their other family. And they're making decisions like, I might be able to do better out here by myself. Or if it is, bringing somebody else in, do you still think that that's a okay decision where it's just, I had to make a decision that was best for me versus best for we?
You talk about as a man, or you talk about the woman making the decision because the man can't provide?
Right.
But the woman got to make the decision that she want to make. I like I said, as for the man in the situation, because that's the context that we're speaking of. I can't speak for a woman, but as a man, I'm always going to think that my presence in the household is necessary. As far as what I see and what I want for my family. Now,
I think that's my point. Sometimes it's not our choice. Sometimes it's not
a lot of times
choice.
It's not our. But that's what we're asking, though, right? I thought that was part. The question is, should we fight to get back in, or would you fight to get back in? You know what I mean?
If somebody makes that decision to push you out because they feel that, I don't think it's a more of a standard of living thing now than a survival thing. If they were to push you out, like, man, I could do better than Leifer got a new executive chef job and now he's doing good. Come on back. Should you go back?
Well, I see what you're saying. It's like
that's a different thing than what I was thinking. I was thinking like I made the mistake. I did tricked off the cash because I was strung out on drugs or I was an alcoholic.
Maybe you just
You know
wasn't
what I mean?
able to
I'm
provide
thinking
the
it's all
standard of
negative
living.
on my end. Not that I'm just
Yeah,
getting pushed out because I ain't providing the lifestyle that she wants because she watched some stuff on social media. That's a whole different thing. You know what I mean? But yeah,
Because I think
mean,
that's
I don't know
happening
if you
more
fight,
now
if you
than
fight for that. Yeah,
that's
for
happening
sure,
more now
for
than
sure.
folks getting on the whistle. Like if you was on the whistle, you shouldn't have you didn't deserve a family to begin with.
That you didn't
More
deserve it.
oftentimes than
You
not.
didn't
Yeah,
deserve your family. Yeah. What
right.
if you have anger issues? Do you deserve your family?
It depends what you're doing with that anger.
Say you're abusive. Say you're verbally abusive. Say you can.
Or
Get
what if you get angry and you go drink?
Or you go drink. Should these things be condoned?
I mean,
No,
it depends.
I would say
love
no.
is about what you can put up with. Yeah,
I'm
love
like,
is
what
about what you
level
can
are
put
we
up with.
So you're
about?
saying as long as you don't mess up the household, like is that the level? Is that the standard? As long as I don't mess up the village, I'm good.
No.
Let's put a mark on it. Let's put a mark on it. Is it as long as I don't mess up the village? Like as long as my family still eat, have a roof, is at that point when we got to make sacrifices for food or we got to make any kind of changes in lifestyle? Is that the issue there?
No, for me, no.
I would say the level of where it starts to negatively affect your family, regardless of whether that's
what I mean. Changes in lifestyle.
Yeah, well, I'm just
so
saying
for me, it was
as far as like emotionally, psychologically, things like that. Like if your kids are having nightmares because you are having these, these anger episodes or whatever, or you're yelling and screaming and things like that, and it's negatively affecting your household, then I think that's a level that can.
That's why I like you, man. That's why I rock. That's why I love you, because you always come from a perspective where it's not financial. You understand what I'm saying? Like you think
and that's what I was
above
gonna
the financial thing, yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Heck shit. Because I'll say it should not be a financial bar. Like it shouldn't be, I would hope not, but
I definitely just set one. I set the financial bar and
it can be, I guess.
I mean, I don't.
I mean, to me, like the financial part is like that's already like that's understood. So it's not even something that needs to be talked about. It's everything else that comes around that. You know what I mean? That I'm learning that is issues or that's that's toxic or that's unhealthy or these things that that we probably all lived through most of our lives or seen in some ways in the neighborhoods, and now we're looking back and saying, oh, well, that's toxic, oh, well, that's dangerous, oh, well, that's not good for your children, or that might have a negative effect, or you're worried about your kids' mental health. Who had time to worry about some kids' mental health? You was worried about if your kids was going to eat. So now we're worried that we have all these middle class issues that
we got white people problems.
Yeah. We have all these issues we're dealing with now that we're kind of just, we're new at this stuff. So we're just figuring these things out and worrying how to navigate these different issues. But yeah, those are things that I think about, man. How does my behavior affect, those? Yeah. And I already know. I could be much. So, how does my behavior affect my kids sleeping? You know what I mean? Does it give them nightmares at night? Does it, you know what I mean? Does it affect their relationships in school, outside of the house? Like, I'm thinking about certain things like that. So that's a bar that that I'm working on too. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think that that's something that you got to think about too. When we're thinking about what's healthy and not healthy and what's a non-negotiable or where you should draw the line at.
Yeah.
So for me, man, I'm very like philosophical and I'm very purist when it comes to this. But the reality always comes into it. It messes up that good dream, right? Because in my mind and in my heart, I'm like, as long as whatever happens is that bar or whatever happens, short of us damaging these children or getting to a point to where we're a bad role model and we're I'm more of a burden than being there emotionally. That should be the bar. So the fact that I hated the fact that money even gets in the way of that. Like me being me, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna figure that part out. Like in my mind, I'm like, we're always gonna be good. We shouldn't have to worry about that. But the fact that comes up, to me, that's the part that's unfortunate about relationships, that there's a conditional part to it, and there's a part that it's dollars and cents that's tied to happiness, if you will. Because I learned a long time ago, no matter how much money you got, it's not gonna make you happy. Mm-hmm. So understanding that somebody's gonna, add that add that into the already difficult part of taking two different people with different minds, different hearts, different moralities coming together and trying to be a union is already tough. But when you also add that part to it, that makes it 10 times harder. So ideally, no, I don't think that's the bar. But there's like we were talking about a reality. There's a reality to it that you have to factor that in. Because for me, and this is a saying that I've said it on this show before, your inheritance is what you leave in your kids, not what you leave to them. So I'm not really worried about that part. Like, obviously, I'm gonna, there's gonna be some financial gain once I'm gone. But I would hope the memories and the teachings that I had from that time spent over the years is way more valuable.
Yeah.
Than
I'm
a millionaire.
The lessons.
Yeah, so that's like, and to me, man, as somebody I've got to see a man or men, I'll say multiple. I've got to see multiple men work their entire life, and at the very least, they were like, hey, I want to make sure that I left something for my family so they're comfortable when I'm gone. And they were just ready for that, other that last piece of dirt to hit the casket so they could get that. And I was like, but what about the life lived and the example that they provided? That's the part
that teach you how to make the money, or you're just waiting for the cash out.
Yeah, that's the part that breaks my heart.
No,
but it's a reality.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's why we had this pod, so we can leave these jewels, and the rest of our lineage can always be like, this is what Granddad thought.
Yep, this is a real-time capsule, and at some point, there like we talked about, there was only previous generations were only getting one side. Now they can hear the other side
verbally, visually, on wax, visually on wax. He made this facial expression when he said it. You get the whole context.
Great granddaddy Mo Better meant it when he said that. He was like, "Hey, it ain't happening. If you better make sure you happy before anybody else is happy."
Facts. I was scrolling through our content. I was like, man, we got like 200 clips. We got a lot of clips, yo. I couldn't even find what we was looking for. But I ain't gonna hold you up too much, man. Hey, that was a great conversation, man. Prototype Dad Tuesday nights, man. Appreciate y'all. We out. Peace.